Hi everyone, I'm Jules, your practical mystic. I mentor and empower folks to live a life of purpose, to find and create and live a life directly in line with their soul's purpose. And I come to you today. There's like everybody's doing yard work today, so we might get some noises of power tools and various things. Pardon me if that happens, but I couldn't stay inside any longer. I was so excited to get out and be in this crisp air in our northern autumn that we have here. I got a big gorgeous cedar, couple of big beautiful cedar trees here around. And, I've been talking a bit about what's happening in my own personal world and about meeting a couple of my own shadows and uncovering some of the invisible threads that are kind of holding me back from being my very best self. And it occurs to me that this is not new stuff. And I wondered if anybody else could relate, and I suspect that you can. When we're talking about ancestral shadows and really our own shadow selves, we tell me if this is something that sounds familiar. Perhaps you're a parent and you, even before you were a parent, you had the thoughts in your head, oh, I'm never going to do what my parents did. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to do that. You have some specific things in mind. And then you get to be a parent and you find that, oh, those are the exact things that you're doing unconsciously without even really realizing it. And perhaps it's a bit of a shock when you do realize it, that, oh my gosh, I sound just like my mother, or I sound just like my father. Perhaps you've even known people who it seems like they just repeat the same things that their parents did in their lives, even if they were unhappy or complaining or saw that kind of behavior was a problem. For example, perhaps you have a friend, or I have a friend whose father just left him. He's very, very little contact with him in his life. And yet when that person, my friend, became a father himself, he did the exact same things to his children without really realizing it. It wasn't as though he said, oh, I'm just gonna, abandon my kids. No, it's because those are deeply ingrained in our DNA. There's scientific evidence about how our experiences, past generations, are literally imprinted on our DNA, and we carry that through, right? So I'm happy to link those research studies below. But all that to say that these are examples of ancestral shadows or negative ancestral patterns that we all carry. We all are at the most recent ones in our lineage, and in our desire to be amazing people, and in our desire to be awesome parents, we've probably come across some of these invisible tendrils that are holding us back. They are literally energetically holding us to that pattern that our family has done so amazing at keeping for generations and generations and generations. So some of these, excuse the power tool noise, I don't know if you can hear that. Some of these are really kind of obvious. You think about like addiction and abuse, and even folks who I have another friend who was adopted, and his adoptive parents were never around drugs and alcohol, was not a part of their lives, and yet his birth parents were addicts. And when he got into his adolescence, he also became an addict. Again, an example of those invisible tendrils that kind of hold us back keep us back into those patterns, those family patterns. So another example is abuse and violence. And it is, that the adage nature versus nurture. Well, a lot of it is nature, and a lot of it is what we grow up with, the examples that we're given in our lives. So when we talk about family shadows, hi Kathy, so nice to see you. We're talking about the ones that we're not really aware of, or maybe we're just becoming aware of because we've asked the questions, how can I be the very best person in my world? How can I live in alignment with my soul's purpose? So we see these things creep up. I'll give you the 8 shadows that I work with, and there are arguably more, are addiction, abuse, violence, xenophobia, poverty, illness, abandonment, and betrayal. And it might be that you're thinking back and you're like, oh, I can pinpoint a couple of those in my most recent family, perhaps even in your own life. Perhaps you've heard stories about generations past and how these have affected your world now. The point I'm trying to make is that even though these are ancestral patterns from way back, oftentimes they are affecting your life now. It could be that these things kind of sneak up on you in your most vulnerable places, and you don't know who to turn to or how to talk about it. It could be that your tendencies tend to go in the way of acting out some of these shadows, and you're not really sure what to do. It could be that you don't know where this energy is coming from. Like, with the example with violence, you don't know where that rage inside of you comes from. And it can be very scary at times. And it's, and there's such stigma around these types of shadows. We don't always know who to talk to. We don't always know where to go for help. And so if we're willing to take that awareness of our own lives, that self-awareness, and we're willing to look back and claim it, say what it is that is yours, and then the things that don't feel like yours, like these threads of the shadows that we're talking about, let's not give it any more energy. Let's just cut it off. Let's just say, oh, no, we're not going to carry that any forward in our life anymore, because our job here is to be the breakers of those negative ancestral chains, to be the ones to say, hey, I have a divine purpose, and I'm going to be a light in this world, and my soul's purpose is to help this planet and these people. And in order to do that, I need to have all of my energy about me, and I need to gather all the things that are no longer useful, because these shadows, they are no longer useful to you. Yeah, and so it comes with a decision, and it's all about having the willingness to do the work. Now, I've created a program. It's self-guided, because for some folks, they just really want to dive in, and you have the time to dive in. But for other folks, I've given it about 20 days or 4-week kind of time frame on this, and it's all about how to, first of all, recognize who's in your family, who's in your soul cluster, and recognize the shadows that are in your family. recognize what it is that is no longer serving, the relationships that are no longer serving, the shadow aspects that are no longer serving, to release that and to reclaim all of the energy that would have been spent fighting those kinds of shadows or distressing over those kinds of shadows. So this course is really powerful, really powerful, and massive shifts happen. And folks who have done this course with me in the past, their lives have been shifted, and they notice massive changes in the family. Have you ever noticed, this happened to me for a long time, you go on a trip to visit close family members, and you love these people, but you're in your own stuff now, right? Have you ever noticed that sometimes you kind of maybe feel like a teenager again, or feel like a kid again, in not an awesome way? You get maybe a little okay, I'll give you my own personal example. I would go visit my father and that family, and I turned into a 17-year-old again. Now, I kind of liked myself when I was 17, but I was also really spoiled and selfish and demanding. And I turned into this person when I would go visit my family. Well, needless to say, it was something that I would observe myself doing and feel like I had no power over this happening. And when I talked to my father, because I'm so grateful I can have these conversations with my dad, when I talked to him, I would say, I come here and I feel like I'm 17. And he would say, I feel like I'm parenting a 17-year-old. And he did a little regression in his own age. And it was just that energy between us was really weird. And we couldn't quite put our finger on it. And we talked about it for years, because no matter how much we wanted to shift that, it wasn't shifting. Fast forward, worked intentionally with ancestral shadows, and those kinds of things stopped happening. I was then able to visit my family fully in myself, in my own process, being able to set boundaries, being able to speak what has deep heart and meaning. It was a dramatic shift. It was dramatic. And yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful work. So I invite you, if you have questions, as I'm sure you do, about ancestral shadow work, if you have questions about your own life, examples you would like clarity on, I invite you to pop me a message. What does Kathy have to say? I really see this work as taking radical responsibility for what we do for ourselves. And I can't read it all. Thank you. Yes, it's clearing out. It's taking radical responsibility, because you're not responsible for the things that you've carried on in your lineage. You're not responsible for the things that have happened to you in your past. Your story is back there, and you are responsible for here forward, for taking action here forward. So, do you choose to do everything that you can to gather your own energy, instead of having it go to various dramas in your life? Do you choose to gather that energy? Do you choose to act in accordance with your own soul's purpose? And I will also say that it's not a judgment. This is not about going, oh my God, my family's so messed up, I'm never going to talk to them again, I can't get together at holidays. It's not what it's about. every person is doing the very best that they can with the tools that they have been given. They're doing the very best that they can. Just like you, you're doing the very best that you can with the tools that you've been given. And it's just taking time to look at ways in which you can help yourself more. Ways in which you can become the very best person you can be, so that you can help your children, for example, be the very best that they can be without all the dragging family dramas to go along with it. And I'm sure we all have some of those. And people are going to be people. This is not about fixing anybody else. It's not about saying, oh, if I do this program, so-and-so is going to quit being a jerk. Nope. They are doing their own life. This is about you. This is about you and how you choose to be in the world. And it's about you and how you choose to be in your family. Yeah. So I invite you to pop me a message if you have any questions about this. We will be launching on the 5th of November. And I have some special things in store for the first folks who sign up. So stay tuned and let me know if you have any questions about this program. And I love you all, and I wish you the very best day. Thanks.